What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of the OneFourthCareers podcast. I'm your host, Xavier, and I am here with Xavier. Xavier graduated from Alabama A&M University with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering in 2017. Now Xavier works at Apple as a software engineer. Xavier 3.0, my brother, welcome, man.
Happy to be here. What's good with you, Xavier?
Man, nothing much, brother. Nothing much at all, man. I know I got everybody with the Xavier. They like, oh, he's tweaking today. Like, what is he talking about? But they just didn't know I had a very special guest here with me to take the mantle and be the Xavier of the episode.
Oh, no, it's an honor and privilege to be here, my guy. It's an honor and privilege.
Hey, man,
Appreciate you.
always salute to another Bulldog, especially another STEM major too, man. But yeah, man, how are you enjoying the summer, bro?
The summer has been amazing. I had a chance to go to Costa Rica. I've had a lot of little
Ooh,
travel time, so it's
yeah.
been eventful. It's been eventful. What about yourself? How's everything been this summer?
Hey, bro, just been a new dad, so that's kind of been taking over everything. Enjoyed the parental leave, just went back to work, and just been enjoying the launch and success of this, man. Talking and reconnecting with a lot of impressive people to really drive a lot of impact in the community, man. So again, honored to have you here, bro. And first thing I wanted to start with is one of the most important things, man. Let the people know a little bit about yourself. How would you describe your beginnings and everything that's fueled you to the success that you're kind of realizing right now?
So I think that with me being here at Apple for 6 years, if I had to kind of look back at it all,
Yeah.
I think about kind of my parents. I think I want to start. I mean, we can go lineages but like what my parents started being in a two-parent household and what difference that made on its own, especially with how Black families are, and then thinking about their backgrounds of poverty and what the rigor that basically they took to be able to build and instill into me to see certain things. And I think that when I was younger, there were things I was passionate about, but I was always looking for that something. Always like the challenge. I always like something new. I always loved the adventure aspect of it. And at a young age, I kind of took towards computers. Didn't know much about them, but fiddling with them, it piqued some type of curiosity, I guess you can say. And then over time, as I went through my middle school and high school, and there was a love and fascination for video games, and like, oh, I wish I could create. Like it just seemed almost like something that was intangible to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think that that's kind of my background, kind of just, it was more of a curiosity. And basically, I was always kind of one of the students that was maybe not the smartest, but I always had whatever I was focused or determined about, I always went the extra mile for it. So that was kind of just like a little brief background into me
Yeah.
getting to who I am and what defines me in my role, too.
Hey, man, sound you's a pretty cool little dude, bro. I'm not gonna hold you being curious about stuff. So I don't know, maybe that teases up here our first segment of kind of explaining and describing what you were like as an adolescent. So the first segment here is called the step back, man, like the hitting the step back on the court, where I know we're really diving into your career field that you're in now. But looking back when you were younger, what did you want to be?
So what I wanted to be, and my parents still have this video of me when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a firefighter. And the reason why I wanted to be a firefighter, and shout out to all the firefighters out there, is because it seemed like the coolest job. You're saving lives, you're doing extreme things, you see the challenge, you see the rigor, and that was exciting. And funny enough, I remember during our, I guess, elementary career day, I forgot to dress up as a firefighter. And since I play with computers, it was just like, well, you dressed up like a nerd, so maybe you're a computer technician. And I leaned into it. And then it just became, things happen for a reason, Xavier. It became a part of my identity. And then I went to school, started doing engineering things, and then there we go.
Started taking on the world, man. So all right,
Yeah.
appreciate that. That is really cool to hear. Wanting to know more about your career as a software engineer, how would you describe your role and responsibilities in that role?
So as a software engineer, since I've been here for 6 years, I've pivoted quite a bit throughout my role. Initially, when I was hired as a manual tester. So basically, taking software UIs and pressing things, kind of tracking the progress of things and making sure the performance. Then transitioning into more of the software testing. So writing little scripts in various different languages just to test the performance of code, mainly UI, so that way you don't have to click and press buttons. Then like we had a org change where our director didn't value basically software QA. So I was forced and thrown into the deep waters of being a developer. So I'm having to learn how to create like microservices and leveraging tools like Flask with Python and understanding Kubernetes for deployment and like Docker for containerizing code and like it became a vast world of what software engineering is. So my role has varied throughout the time, but currently I'm more of a cloud infrastructure person. So basically, I go in and using Amazon Web Services, if you're familiar with them, or Google Cloud Platform, we basically create the infrastructure that allows people to run code in the cloud. So let's say, Xavier, you go and you want this game accessible to someone. I can say, all right, you write the code, I will deploy it, and then now your wife can now play it because I put it in the cloud and basically I'm hosting this thing for you. And that's what I do. I provide the support and the infrastructure for people to run their code for artificial intelligence because I'm more in AI/ML now. It's been a huge shift, but we can talk more about career things later.
Hey man, a lot of that goes over my head with all the terminology and buzzwords. So it does sound pretty intriguing, and especially with you kind of giving us that added nugget of how some of your roles have shifted. I think that's really interesting. You having that experience, and I think that there are probably a lot of gems coming out of this conversation with all that experience that you have at Apple. So now I'm curious, in your current role, or even kind of summarizing from the roles you've been in, what are some of the skills, maybe adjacently certifications, that are useful and helpful for someone else to thrive in the role that you're in?
So I would think that if you in my current role, probably maybe having some of those different AWS certifications. Now, since I had a little bit of experience prior to my role with AWS, I didn't necessarily have to get the certifications, but I know that I have a lot of peers that are very well in depth with their knowledge and they're able to utilize the certification I'm doing. So I think there's like an architectural engineer type of certification. There's a cloud engineer certification. So I think the architecture will be most helpful because it'll give you a little bit more vast knowledge of AWS. At the moment, I'm not extremely familiar with actual the Google Cloud Platform certifications, but I would say if you're interested in doing that, I think that also just resource wise, there's a lot of books. One thing I would recommend, and I don't want to go off too much of the rails, one thing that I've realized in my career, yes, YouTube is useful. Yes, it's cool to be able to watch videos, but something about how your brain processes things that are in words and you being able to take it at your own pace and what you can grasp. I ended up learning a lot more from reading books than watching YouTube videos because always think about it. A lot of times you are still telling a story with a video as with a book. However, with the video, you're kind of given a summarized versus a book. You can get a little bit more in depth and get more vivid with your words,
Mhm.
along with seeing actual buzzwords. So when you're talking about writing, if you're communicating to your peer, you have to know these buzzwords just so people know that you're competent enough in these spaces. So something I just want to throw out there as well. So
Okay, look, dropping the gems. Let them know. Let them know. No, I like that. I haven't heard that one before, and maybe it's because I've been out of the tech space for a little while. But I think that's really, really helpful for people to hear your experience with that. So appreciate you sharing. Now I want to talk about, if people are interested in being a part of organizations, programs, any associations, to kind of be in the environment with other software engineers or related industry slash career fields. Do you have any insight into what some of those orgs, programs, associations would look like?
I think that if you're depending on what age depending on what age that's watching this video, I know that Apple has a couple of programs that's had high school students that will come out here, and some of like one of my mentors, love the lady, amazing, she's amazing, and she would help mentor through these programs for these high schoolers. So they'll like work on little Swift, which is a programming language that's used for creating a lot of iOS development and macOS development, even though primary Objective-C, I digress. But basically, yeah, there you have programs like that. So you can look into these different companies and see like, okay, what type of programs are there that's offered to high schools? Now, actually, when you're in college, maybe one thing that was useful for me was NSBE. And I think that while it's a nice way of getting a chance to interview, having a community, but I lean in more in the community aspect because for me personally, and I'm sure probably for you as well, Xavier, there's so many people that you will meet there that you don't know where they will be in your career. And that's, I feel like, the most vital part. Just being out here, there's been people I've met at NSBE 6, 7, 8 years ago, run into them. Oh, I met you at NSBE. We chatted up. They end up telling me how to fix one of my problems I'm solving at work. One time I remember there's this thing called Elasticsearch. This guy that was at Microsoft, he was asking a group chat that formed because of these different bonds we build. Like, hey, anyone got experience with this? I was like, yeah, this is what you got to do when you're indexing this so you can get the data transfer this way, so forth. So it creates the community so that way you can learn. And then also, I'm going to put y'all on game as well. If you're good at what you do, okay, and people know, everybody gets paid, okay? So what I mean by that, okay, if your boy work at Microsoft, right, okay, and you good at what you do, and if you can pass the interview, your boy gets a referral bonus, okay, while you get the bag by working at Microsoft. So y'all both get paid, okay? Then keep in mind, if you bring on a good engineer, that person's name is a part of your brand. So if that's a part of your brand, that means that you're only on par with good people. So that means that people want to tie themselves to you because you're your brand, which helps you elevate in your career as well. So, but anyway, I could digress and talk about that topic over and over again. So,
I love that. So you're going to mess around. I'm going to have to bring you back. We're going to say part 2. We're going to say part 2, but shout out the NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, a remarkable organization. I'm pretty sure it's probably when Xavier and I both really connected in undergrad. So I think a lot of people have similar testimony. So shout out to NSBE. Really appreciate the program. And thanks for dropping those added gems, my brother. Now, curious about the backgrounds that you've observed in the software engineering roles. What backgrounds have you noticed make up people in those roles? Would you say it's cookie cutter, or would you say that there are maybe some different degrees, different experiences that people who become software engineers maybe have?
it's interesting because I feel like most of the time, for me, I had an electrical engineering degree, and I didn't really have a firm computer science background. So for me, it was an uphill battle initially, especially when I was kind of thrown into the developer side of the pool. But with reading and maybe also just taking time to look at things, because it's problem solving. But outside of myself, I've had teachers went from being a teacher to software engineers, people who've done boot camps that's kind of went from maybe just odd end jobs, and they were determined enough to figure out how to work a certain part of their brain to understand a problem, dissect the problem, and solve a problem. Because that's the concept of what it is. Whether you're an engineer, doctor, there's a problem, there's tools that you use to solve the problem. Are you competent enough to use these tools and understand the problem to find the solution? So there's a vast variety of people that's become software engineers.
I love that. See, I always get excited when different guests are able to kind of share that perspective that, hey, you can come from a variety of backgrounds. I myself didn't really understand the career options I had being a mechanical engineer. And I think a lot of people share that same sentiment of maybe not being familiar with, oh, I can go do this or go be this. it could be limited from you not knowing someone with your academic background in that particular position. A lot of times when you go to college and a part of these different organizations, understandably so, but sometimes the college you're a part of is of course going to push jobs that are naturally compatible with what you're studying. And not frequently do you see exposure opportunities to, hey, there may be some transferable skills you have if you wanted to go into a different field. So I think that's really powerful for you to share some of that. Now, thinking about where you are in your career experience, if you could go back to undergrad and give yourself experience to either better prepare for the role that you're in or just generally prepare to enter the workforce, what kind of advice do you think would come to mind?
That is a really good question, Xavier, I must say, because I think that there is advice that I'll give myself as an undergrad, but at the same time, I think everything happens for a reason. I do wish that certain things I took a little bit more serious with my career, like instead of rushing through things and just taking the exam, understanding the material that's been presented to me, because a lot of times, especially being in the space, and I guess one thing about being in, for instance, with Apple, I'm not going to say they don't train you, but they bring you in as a specialist versus as a rookie engineer. So there's an assumption that there's already a certain knowledge level when you come in. So with that being said, when I was in university, if I would have taken some of the courses a little bit more serious, there would not been longer late nights I had to spend just trying to catch up. Just think about instead of if I would have took the time and been like I was here, this is where they expected. If I took the time being here, it would have taken me, it took me maybe a year to be here, but if I did what I had to do, I could have been here. Which means that for people who are more incentivized by money, I could be making more money, more equity, more stock. And if you're interested in talking about that, we can talk about that as well. How does tech jobs and working for equity in a salary versus just a lump of salary can make a difference with your quality of life as well. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the biggest thing.
That's crazy, man. I really appreciate that transparency too, from your experience. And I think that that is really enlightening to hear other people's journeys when they first start at a job, and appreciate that organizational insight you provided as well for Apple. And I think that there's a lot that people can learn from that piece of advice. And I also can relate, and I've heard it from others where when they enter the workforce, depending on what career field you're going into, it's worth doing your due diligence on what it's like entering a new company in a new role. You can do that through LinkedIn. You can do that talking to your professors saying, hey, I want to go work for this company, or I got a full-time offer from this company for this role. Let me talk to other people who will be my peers or people who are in this space to ask what the onboarding journey is like, to ask what competencies are expected. And that really just puts more power in your hands. Like if you do trade-offs while you're in university and you want to focus on different things, feel free to do that. But if you are incentivized by whatever you identify, you'll be able to take the reins back and plan accordingly. And honestly, bro, I think it also speaks to the diligent nature of your work ethic. Like late nights, you work late nights when you entered the workforce to catch up. It sounds pretty intentional to me. You could have not worked late nights. You could have said, I know what I know. I'll figure the rest out on my own time. But it sounds like you put in the extra time and extra work to not only meet the competency baseline maybe expected of you, but also to thrive. So kudos to you, my brother, because that also just speaks to being resilient. That speaks to taking on a new challenge. That speaks to working hard for whatever you feel, whatever you deem is worth being, and obviously knowing you before you started working at Apple, I just think that it's nothing that's new, nothing that surprises me, but, also want to give you flowers, my guy. So appreciate you sharing that transparency, but also, you've been at Apple 6 years. You're doing something right, right? I think a lot of competitive organizations these days, there is accountability from your employer a lot when you enter the workforce. If you're not cutting it, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you could get cut. And that's just a part of life. So, you're still there kicking, doing a great job, and you're here with me on the pod. So appreciate you and wanted to give you those flowers, man. So something else that's kind of related to that with you doing such a great job at Apple, with you being a software engineer for as long as you've been, how would you describe what the career progression, career pathway, how would you talk about the different levels when we talk about upward mobility?
So I think that it's interesting with tech because, or just in any career path actually, because with Apple in particular, you have the direction of going either the leadership management, or you can go more the individual contributor route. How a lot of us we map this is you're even though that you can go both these routes, they're still kind of like this. So they kind of go out kind of a similar V motion. So, but the only thing is the individual contributor levels out after a while, and you can't really go higher than that. So to kind of give you a measure, for me, I if I wanted to, let's say if I was a senior engineer, okay, senior engineer equals at the same level as a manager. So I can jump between those roles and it'll be equivalent. But it's kind of a personality choice.
Mm,
Here at Apple, yeah, because that makes a difference because some people don't know how to manage people. Some people are just really good at leading this particular project. It makes a difference. It's
yeah,
personality. But in the culture of Apple, managers are individual contributors as well, at up to maybe at least manager level 2 or maybe manager level 3. But manager level 1, you're definitely a contributor while also actually actively managing your team. And like I said, once you get past manager level 3, then you're in director level, which that's superseding off of the individual contributor because the highest about 6, 7's directly, but that's like a legendary position basically at that point. So yeah.
mm. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool to know. And for people watching, it's totally fine if you don't know all these particular levels. Like leveling is different at different organizations, but I think you still kind of get the point of understanding that upper mobility exists. And there are a couple of different options. I think in a lot of roles, you have options of what upper mobility looks like. You have some
Yeah.
companies and organizations where it's maybe cookie cutter, like, oh, I just get promoted to this and then this, and basically just one vertical line. But for those who are excited to have options and are still kind of discovering what they're interested in, and to Xavier's point, you feel that your personality maybe isn't suitable for every single role and every single career track, maybe keep your eye open for companies and career paths that have a little flexibility. So even if you don't know the ins and outs of how Apple leveling works, I still think it's something that's really applicable to different organizations. So really cool to highlight, man. Now I want to ask you, in your career, in life, however you want to go about answering, what inspires Xavier Crutcher?
I think that I'll have to say 2 things. The first 3. I'll give it 3, okay. The first thing, Michael not Michael, what's his name? Jamie Foxx is a person that's always inspired me because he's just a person that I feel like can do it all and just vast in things, and I feel like with that being said, I'm the type of person that just loves to tackle a lot of different things, so, like, with Apple, like, no shade to government jobs because I'm probably going to be in another government job soon because the comfort, the mobility, you can still learn is at a slower pace. Here, sometimes it's very, very fast, and it can be give you anxiety and so forth. It's hard to kind of cope with. But the thing is also outside of work, like I've got into photography. I do a little singing. Is it great? I don't know. I've done a lot of video editing with my little YouTube channel. Like I party, I dance, all that kind of things. And there's so many things I want to explore. Avid traveler, like it's just so that's because of who Jamie Foxx is, and doesn't matter what the avenue is. That's one thing that inspired me. Second thing that inspired me was when I got to California, being a country boy from Alabama, been a sheltered household, stricken by poverty from both of their mindsets, and kind of having a growth mindset. I wanted to experience anything that's possible. I wanted no should not even be on the table for me being able to do something. So, like, been to every continent in the world. I've did camping. I've skydived. I've scuba dived. Like, there's so many things I still want to do, and there's nothing that I feel like I want to say, nope, I can't do that. And that's where I'm at. So that's the second thing, just knowing that I don't want there to be any limit. The sky's not even the limit for me. You feel me? So that's the second thing that motivates me. I guess it's just those two things mainly that motivate me. Just not
Man,
living in a limitless lifestyle and who Jamie Foxx was, basically. I know, too
living a
strict.
limitless lifestyle. I love that. That is dope. And that's really cool. I hope to have some of those experiences one day because I not making a lot of progress as much there, but I think that's really exciting, and it just shows people just a different way of living and different things that you're able to experience. So with that, you've dropped so many gems, bro. Like, what advice would you leave for the people?
So one thing that I would say leave with the people is that first, always understand what makes you happy. Be intentional about everything that's about you. Because like look, one thing I realized with my career, and I got dragged with this very, very heavily, maybe the last 2 or 3 years, is I felt like there were points where I did want to leave Apple, but I felt like I had to stay because I had to represent everybody else that's behind me. That is the truth because of just the black tax. It's the truth. But at the same time, I had to be a little bit more intentional of like, if I'm going to be here, let me curate this experience to make me happy. How do I make the best out of this experience versus I'm doing what I got to do for everybody else? Like, whatever you do, so that way you don't grow with resentment towards things where you're not able to put your best foot forward with things. Be intentional about how can I make this a happy situation. And if it's really not for you, don't make it. Don't force it to be for you. That's with any career path. I have so many people that's become nurses, that's become doctors, that's become engineers, even myself sometimes, where even though the money seems like it's enticing, how long do you feel like your mental health can stand doing it? And that's one of the things I would think about. Reflect on it. Know yourself. Think about what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And second thing, have a hobby, but that hobby should be the thing you love. Do what you work for is what you enjoy. Your hobby is what you love. Never do your hobby for money, in my personal opinion, because then you'll start to do you'll do your hobby for what other people love versus what you love, which will take the joy out of going into that hobby. Because I know too many people that it ruins the whole experience for them. So yeah.
Let's go, bro. Man, this is deep, but this is exactly what I needed as well. Because even as you said that, I'm like, I'm doing this as a hobby. You know, a lot of opportunities in the future, but the passion of serving, of dismantling gatekeeping, of spreading awareness and information, and making sure that no one has to be alone when you're thinking about career planning and you want to see somebody who looks like you. Just talk about their experiences, just giving that big brother energy, you know, big sister energy, you know, whatever, whoever the guests come on, man, is just, you know, celebrating that community and just talking to amazing people like yourself. So really appreciate that very intentional advice. I think that is super helpful and super dope, bro. So, man, some of my favorite things to end with, especially when I know my guests have a lot going on, is to ask, what's going on in your world, man? How can people connect with you? What are things that you're doing that you want people to know about? How can viewers support you as you have spent time out of your day supporting them?
Well, follow me on Instagram at Chocozay, on Instagram, CHOCOZAY. Follow my YouTube channel. If you type in on YouTube, Xavier Space Crutcher, you can follow content. If you're interested in traveling, I have a lot of videos just to give you some what things look like, things you can do. And maybe this next Friday, and with all intentions, I'm hoping to be releasing a new song called In Between by Chocoze on Apple Music. So feel free to check it out. It might be a vibe for you. So, but yeah, those are the main things. As I told Xavier, I want to give to my community, to whoever who's willing to listen, however I can support and be a service.
I love it. Y'all will find those links in the description. Make sure you click below and go support my guy. Go support Chocoze. Go support the YouTube channel. I will be subscribing. If I'm not subscribed already, I might be, but if not, I'm about to go subscribe. So I appreciate you for that, man. Well, this was a blessing, bro. This was a treat. So excited that we were able to get this done, man. And thanks again for stopping by.
No worries. Nothing but a pleasure. And Xavier, keep doing what you do. Don't ever change. And I promise, don't do this for the money, bro. Don't do it for the money. Do it for the love.
Sure. Yes, sir. I love it, man. A lot of love to you, bro. Appreciate it. And we'll be talking soon, bro.
All right. Peace.
All right, y'all. Another amazing episode of OneFourthCareers podcast. I have my doppelganger, a little bit darker than me. You know what I'm saying? You know, shout out to him. Shout out to the melanin on the pod, man. Taking over on the West Coast for us, holding it down for everybody in Alabama, making us all proud as an Alabama A&M Bulldog as well. I hope you all were able to take a lot of the nuggets that he shared. I hope that this pod helped you. If you know someone who wants to work at Apple, someone who wants to work as a software engineer, someone who just wants to learn about what that career path looks like generally, feel free to share the video. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what other careers you want to be exposed to. Happy to get started on that content. So hit that notification button. Thank you so much for supporting, and look forward to talking to y'all next time. Stay happy, stay blessed. Peace.